He didn't want her living with her parents anymore because he wanted her to come and go at all hours. He didn't want her parents to be suspicious. So very quickly she gets pulled in, and then they say, you know, you don't have a passport. We need to get you one of those. And Ghislaine Maxwell helps her fill out the application, and then they take her to London. That's really one of her first major trips. Certainly, she'd never been abroad before. They take her to London, and that's where she's first trafficked to Prince Andrew. She had already been, by that point, trafficked to other friends of Epstein and Maxwell. So it was a pretty quick sort of itinerary on her going into the depths of hell. She quickly becomes one of their people that travels with them all over the world.
Talking about this horror that she underwent that is rocking both Britain right now and the United States and the U.S. It may well be why Congress has not resumed working. And of course, right now, you have the situation just before the two of your book was released. Prince Andrew has voluntarily given up his titles because of what's being released in this book.
Hi, this is Robert Wilkins, aka Basketball Tall, your BT dispatcher, bringing you news and commentary with a different flavor. Today, we're going to talk about a story that everybody's talking about it all over the world because it has that type of an attraction and the power. We're talking about Virginia Giuffre's new book, Nobody's Girl. So, before I dive into it, first of all, let me tell you a little bit who I am. I'm a former college basketball player. I'm a former police officer. I'm a former district court juvenile officer on the state level and also commissioned deputy sheriff. I'm also a former juvenile justice specialist, proper name, you might say fancy name for a juvenile probation and parole officer on the state level, and which I supervised 5 counties at the same time. So my career has been in law enforcement, and you can see it's been across multi-spectrums of the occupation when you say, but the thing is, that's what's going to give me the commentary that I'm going to share with you based on experience and when it comes down to the law, the truth, and honesty. Wouldn't you agree? So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. And also, by the way, give me a thumbs up, baby, because that helps the algorithm and makes certain that they distribute it to others who can also get to know this platform. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere because we're about to get started.
Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva, who was elected a month ago in a special election to represent more than 800,000 people of the greater Tucson area. Grijalva says she believes Speaker Johnson is refusing to seat her because she would be the final vote necessary on a discharge petition to release unclassified records about convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Last week, the House Oversight Committee released a new set of Epstein documents, including call logs that included someone listed as Donald Trump. As all of this unfolded Tuesday, an explosive memoir was released by Jeffrey Epstein's survivor, the late Virginia Giuffre, titled Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice. Virginia was the first survivor to come out publicly against Epstein. In the book, she details how he groomed her along with his co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, who met Virginia while she worked at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year sentence for sex trafficking. Giuffre writes, quote, "In my years with them, they let me out to scores of wealthy, powerful people. I was habitually used and humiliated, and in some instances, choked, beaten, and bloodied. I believed I might die as a sex slave," she said. Virginia also details how she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew 3 times, beginning when she was 17. Virginia also said she was beaten and raped by a well-known prime minister.
Now we can see why they want to keep this thing under wraps, because we're talking about some big name international players here. And wow, because Jeffrey Epstein, he traveled the world, didn't he? Had his own plane or planes. And boy, I can see why they want to keep this thing hush-hush. Who are all the people that's involved in it? And we know it's a lot of people because right now we have dozens of women now that have come out. You can see why people are afraid to come up and say anything because you got powerful forces in play here, and they can consider that dangerous. So stay tuned. I'll give you my take on this as we go through this process with my own commentary flavor, baby. But I can tell you this, and I don't know how you feel, but I'm all about the victims. I'm all about those people who are kids because I once investigated crimes committed by kids and against children. And to now have all these dozens of women that are now coming forth, and our House leader is doing everything he can to prevent it from being displayed. You know, how do you feel when you know you've read something, watched something, heard something, and you know what it is, and then you watch our Speaker of the House come out and say something totally contrary to the truth as to what we know, see, and heard, and hoping that people will buy it. And believe it or not, some people are buying it. But I say let's protect the victims. Let the truth come out.
Virginia Giuffre died reportedly by suicide earlier this year in Australia at age 41. Nobody's Girl was completed just before she died. In the book's foreword, her collaborator, Amy Wallace, describes an email from Virginia shortly before she died that read in part, quote, "The content of this book is crucial as it aims to shed light on the systemic failures that allow the trafficking of vulnerable individuals across borders. It's imperative that the truth is understood and that the issues surrounding this topic are addressed both for the sake of justice and awareness. In the event of my passing, I would like to ensure that nobody's girl is still released," she said. For more, we're joined here in our New York studio by Amy Wallace, the ghostwriter of Virginia Roberts Giuffre's posthumously published memoir this week, Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice. Amy Wallace's op-ed in Sunday's New York Times is headlined, "Why Virginia Roberts Giuffre Would Not Stop Talking About Jeffrey Epstein." We welcome you to Democracy Now! This book is utterly painful. The cover, a photograph of a young Virginia disappearing, fading.
Thank you, Democracy Now! For this reporting. But let me ask you, how are you feeling right now knowing about this particular case? And I know a lot of folks are up in arms about this, and then others will say, hey, shut up, leave it alone, it's no big deal. But anyhow, we need to examine ourselves, especially when it comes to the rich, famous, and powerful, because so many victims are discarded and, of course, plagues their mind mentally. Think about Virginia Giuffre.
Why don't you start off by talking about how Virginia Giuffre came to work at Mar-a-Lago as an underage young woman, and then ultimately was trafficked by both Maxwell and Epstein.
Yeah, well, she was 16 years old. She was working a summer job at Mar-a-Lago. She was working in the spa, so there was a particular section of the hotel that she worked in. Her father worked at Mar-a-Lago as a maintenance man, and he helped her get the job.
A man who abused her as well.
A man who abused her as well, which she reveals in this book for the first time. And we can talk about that more. But yeah, she was about a couple weeks into the job, but she loved working there. It was a beautiful place. She felt really privileged to be there. And a posh British woman walks in with an amazing outfit and very attractive. I think Virginia writes that her handbag cost more than my dad's truck. There was a class issue here, clearly. And the woman sees her reading an anatomy book and says, oh, are you interested in massage? And Virginia says, well, I don't really know much about it, but I'm so inspired by this spa. I would love to learn. And she is asked to then go that day to Epstein's house. She goes because a woman has asked her, and she thinks it's going to be safe. And that very day, hours later, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein sexually abused her for the first time, and at that point, she was in the net. Well, I think, there were different victims that were treated differently. There were some girls that went one time to the house in Palm Beach, and then were never seen again. And then there were other girls who were in the sort of inside circle. And Virginia lived very close by. When she first met him, she lived in Loxahatchee, which is a sort of more rural, poorer area. She lived with her parents in a trailer in the back. And he liked her. I think that he could spot, he and Ghislaine both were very good at sniffing out girls who had already been abused and who were more vulnerable to being manipulated. And so he quickly absorbed her into his world, told her to quit her job at Mar-a-Lago. He would rent her an apartment. He didn't want her living with her parents anymore because he wanted her to come and go at all hours. He didn't want her parents to be suspicious. So very quickly she gets pulled in, and then they say, you don't have a passport. We need to get you one of those. And Ghislaine Maxwell helps her fill out the application, and then they take her to London. That's really one of her first major trips. Certainly, she'd never been abroad before. They take her to London, and that's where she's first trafficked to Prince Andrew. She had already been, by that point, trafficked to other friends of Epstein and Maxwell. So it was a pretty quick sort of itinerary on her going into the depths of hell. She quickly becomes one of their people that travels with them all over the world. Any survivor of sexual abuse understands that coming forward, you have sort of a cost-reward ratio that you're weighing. You want to hold these people accountable for what they did to you, but you also know that's going to come at a cost. Your privacy, obviously, but also in the case of Virginia, some of these men had threatened her. Some of these men had threatened her physically. She'd had death threats that the FBI found credible and called her, and she and her family rented a camper van in Australia where they lived and fled into the wilds of Australia for 3 weeks to try to figure out what to do next. So there were real risks and legal risks. There were people that said to her, basically, it doesn't matter what you say or what's true, we're going to keep you in court for the rest of your life if you don't take our names out of your mouth. So there were a lot of decisions that she had to make about what names were going to go in. There are new names there, but as you say, there are names left out. I guess what I would add to that is that this book was never intended to be a list of names. If you want a list of names, you can go to the Epstein Files, and they are there. Not just Virginia's names, and I know all of the ones that she told the FBI repeatedly, but other victims have bravely come forward. And this investigation has been going on for many, many years, since the first time that Epstein was arrested and charged back in 2000, I believe, 8. There's a lot of information there. And so to put and this is what my op-ed in the New York Times is about, to put the burden always on victims, the weakest among us who've already been hurt, to make them repeat on demand, instead of having law enforcement do its job. And I think that's why a lot of the American public is calling for the release of the Epstein Files.
Calling for law enforcement to do their job. I can't ever recall ever seeing anything like this. Have you? Where law enforcement at the highest level, it appears like things are being covered up, being silenced. Hey, my whole career was law enforcement. I understand. I know what it's like to arrest people, but I also know the importance of going to court and swearing in, do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And here we are now, our government officials is trying to quash this thing, all because of names that's in it. And we've all heard that a lot of our top people who we may know or who we know, names are in the files. Does it smell like a cover-up to you? Forget about party. I'm so sick and tired of people talking about red and blue. I'm so sick and tired of people talking about Republicans and Democrats. Do your doggone job. Because let's hope someday that these victims get justice. They deserve it. What if it was you? And some of you listen to this right now because about 20% of all women that we know of have been raped. And think about could be more who never reported it. Do your job. My job has always been about protecting the public. Truth, honesty, evidence. Saving somebody's life. Just imagine the stress and pressures that Virginia Giuffre was under. Just the fright, the threats, the death threats, the legal threats for those higher up that's got so much money that they can't outlive it. But they can use it to keep you in court forever, especially if you're indigent. You're poor, like Virginia Giuffre, who lived in a trailer house. So you know they didn't have much money. Her dad wasn't working maintenance at Mar-a-Lago. They were just living day to day, just like most of us Americans. We live paycheck from paycheck. And right now, here we have a lady who was under such pressure, threats. And imagine the years and the bravery that it took for her to step up to do this. And couldn't take it anymore. And so allegedly ended her life. People are going about their lives, having a good time, celebrating, living the good life, and while so many more are struggling. But we defend and support those that's living the good life, don't we? How stupid is that when you really think about it? Mike Johnson, nobody's that stupid. We know who controls the power here, and it's you. So open back up the government and take a vote to the people. And we know it's a smoke screen, not wanting to swear in the person from Arizona, hoping that something can be figured out before she's sworn in so she wouldn't be that deciding vote to present the Epstein Files, or maybe persuade enough of the Republicans in the party who signed off to do this to not do it. Thank you, Democracy Now!, for this story. And for those of you that are interested, would like to see the full story from Democracy Now!, look in the description below and click on the link, and it'll take you to the full unedited story. And that way you can see and feel it for yourself. Because the writer, Amy Wallace, she can't help but touch your heart. And the reporter asked some good, valid questions. So look in the description below and click on the link for this particular story that I'm, of course, getting snips of it for you.